Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do a review on this 15 amp 10 inch job site saw made by Vevor.
So as always guys, if you could do us a favor, hit that subscribe button and click the little bell icon. We're putting out a bunch of content and we got some big stuff coming up you don't want to miss. So full disclosure guys, Vevor contacted us and asked us if they sent us a table saw, would we do a review on it? And we said sure, we'll do that. So we are going to give you a 100% honest review on the table saw and stand. So this thing retails for about $359 on Amazon, and I'll put the link down below in the description. We're going to tell you what we liked about it, what we didn't like about it, and what made us just want to set the shop on fire.
Let's burn this place to the ground.
So first thing we got to talk about is the stand that the table saw comes with. There's some good stuff and some bad stuff. So we're going to go over the positives first. Number one thing is this thing is sturdy. It really is super sturdy. I'm not saying I'd want to, do jumping jacks on it or anything, but when you're cutting with the saw and everything, it doesn't feel rickety at all. Another thing I really like about it is this little latch right here. This little latch is a pretty good design. It makes it to where if you got to move it around, this thing isn't going to pop up. It makes you feel a lot more secure if you're cutting on it. Out here in the desert, most of our concrete is not even at all. So it's got these adjustable rubber feet, and you can see we adjusted it. This thing's not going anywhere. It's not rickety, it's not wobbly. These adjustable rubber feet are a little feature, but man, it makes a pretty big difference when you're using it. So now let's talk about the negatives on the stand. The number one thing is the holes for the carriage bolts were too small. It wouldn't fit in there at all. I actually had to use a hammer and try to get them in there and ended up kind of tweaking the frame itself. The instructions to put the stand together were worthless. Pictures were super tiny. They were hard to understand. We ended up looking at a picture of the saw itself and figuring it out. It took me and Dad working on it together about 2.5 hours to put this stand together. And I gotta tell you, by the time we were done with that, I was already ready to film this and give it just the worst review possible, simply because we were so frustrated. However, once the stand is together, you really can't beat it. It's a solid stand and it's a space saver. You can put it in your corner, everything folds up. If you don't have a big shop, this is a great option for you. So for me personally, I give the stand just by itself about 3.5 stars. It would be 4.5 if it would have taken us an hour and a half less to put it together.
All right, let's talk about the saw. We're done with the stand. Let's talk about the saw, the operations, the goods, the bads. One good thing is if you have a sturdy rolling cart, you can get the saw for $259. You can save $100. It's $359 with the stand, but if you already have a rolling cart or you want to build your own, you save yourself $100. Another positive that I really liked is this thing was shipped to us and they packed it really well. Even though the outside of the box had a couple punch holes in it, this thing was solid as a rock, no damage whatsoever. It was packed really, really well. So bottom line, here's the thing with the actual power. This 15 amp 10 inch had plenty of power. This thing really kind of surprised me. We cut over a 2-inch thick piece of sycamore and man, it just went right through it. And that's with the stock blade. If you put a really good blade on it, I'm sure it would have done even better. So the power aspect of this thing, 2 thumbs up for sure. Again, talking about performance, the thing that I liked over our other contractor job site saw, this thing goes a full 3.5 inches thick, where our other one, our old rigid, only goes about 3 inches thick. So that's definitely a plus. Another big plus is this has got a really nice riving knife. Our other saw doesn't have that. I really like that. That's kind of a neat feature, especially for like an entry-level saw, which is what this is. All right, let's get into the depth and the angle adjustment. Couple things I like, couple things I don't. So what I like is the actual depth adjustment. This is super handy, super easy to do. That one, I really like the way it adjusts up and down. What I don't care for is that once you do get it set for depth, there's no lock on it. You can't lock in that depth. Not crazy about that. Okay, so let's talk about the angle adjustment. Now this does lock in. The one thing that I'm not crazy about is when you loosen this, see how it automatically, just from gravity, it swings over. Not crazy about that, but I do like the way this engages that rack and pinion and allows you to go. Now, the other thing is, don't trust the fact that this 0 is actually 0. Once you get that to where you want it, you tighten that down, but that might not be 0. Definitely want to use your gauge on top at 90 degrees. You want to do that for sure. And any of your angles, you want to double check them. Don't necessarily go by this, but that's not just this saw, that's any saw. So another positive that I really like that's better than our old job site saw, the way this thing collapses and goes vertical allows you to clean it out really easy. That's not that easy to do on our other one, which doesn't have this space saver design. You guys saw Ryan doing that earlier. Cool thing is you can just take an air hose and blow that thing off. You can lubricate everything really well by getting to the underside of the saw very easily. I really like that. The fence, they actually gave us this extra plastic piece that, again, the instructions were so bad they didn't even tell us what this plastic piece was for. We guessed it was for ripping really thin material, but that's strictly a guess on our part because it really didn't tell us. So that's kind of a wasted piece. We're probably not even going to use it. So if we're correct on this plastic piece that it is made to cut real thin, like 16th inch or 32nd inch pieces, it still is not even accurate for that because it doesn't stay flat on the table itself. All right, let's talk about the fence. The fence, actually, I'm kind of happy with the fence. I think it works pretty good. It's nice and solid when you lock it into place. It's pretty solid, especially for this price point of a saw. One thing I wish was a little bit better, I wish this was a little bit beefier. This is only about 1-inch aluminum. I wish it was a little bit beefier, but I gotta say, it's pretty solid and it's pretty smooth. There's not much problems with it.
So another thing we really like about this saw is the fact that the table expansion goes to 25 inches. The measurements that you use to measure your fence, it's got 4 different ones. It's got your measurement for when your fence is closed and when it's open, and it actually shows you where the measurement is on both of them. And then it also has the measurements for if you have that fence attachment on it as well. So the bottom line is without the attachment, the top line is with the attachment. The only thing about the expansion we don't like is the fact that in order to lock it in, the knobs are underneath the table and it's kind of a pain to get to, especially if you got fat fingers like I do. It's kind of hard to lock them and unlock them. So the table saw comes with a push stick and a miter gauge. Now, the miter gauge works pretty good. It's a little on the wobbly side, but not bad at all, especially for the price point and being pretty much an entry-level table saw. And it goes to 60 degrees instead of 45. So it gives you a lot to work with on the miter gauge. The push stick, you know, it's a plastic push stick. It's got measurements on the top, which is kind of cool, but plastic push sticks are not the best in the world. In fact, Matt Outlaw did a video on the dangers of using a plastic push stick. So it's up to you whether you want to use it or not, but it does come with it.
So here's another positive. It has a double wrench setup for taking the arbor nut out or the arbor bolt in order to change blades. I really like that because it allows you to get it nice and tight and you don't have to clamp the blade. There's not a shaft lock or anything like that, but just feel a lot more secure with a double wrench setup. So here's one thing I'm not crazy about is this insert that around the blade. But one thing I don't like is that little clip to take it in and out. It's got a little finger hole, like somebody could actually do it with their finger. Not me. Well, number one, my finger's too fat and fit in that hole. But even with that, you can see I need to use a pair of pliers to pop that thing out of there. So it's set up for dust collection, and they included this hose, which is a good thing, but there's a problem. So this hose is the same size on both ends, and it hooks up to this just fine. But the problem comes into play that this is really where you would want it hooked in, and it's the wrong size for that. It is the right size for that, but this makes no sense at all because this would get in the way of your material if you're ripping anything. So you would want a 90 for here, or you'd want a coupler for this, or maybe even a 90 coming off this side. But this just doesn't make any sense at all. There's no way to hook that up without some type of a coupler. So it's good that they included the hose. and they've got it set up for here, but it just doesn't make sense the way it is right now. You need to add something to it to really make it work.
So as far as the saw goes, my biggest concern, and to be 100% honest, I don't know if it'll affect anything or not. There's some movement in the blade when I move the dust port. When I move this dust port, the blade and the riving knife are actually moving too. So I don't know if that's going to translate when we're actually cutting, if the blade is going to be moving as we're cutting. It sure didn't seem to when we cut that 2-inch piece of sycamore. It cut great, but it doesn't make me feel all that comfortable that the blade itself will move that easily.
So another suggestion, something that is not a real big deal, but it's something that for me is kind of important, is the power switch. So this is the power switch. The actual off button sticks out a little bit further than the on button, so that's good. You can kind of hit it. The kind of switch that I prefer is a paddle switch, and you guys have seen these. You turn it on that way, and then emergencies, boom. All you have to do is just come close to it and hit it off. I think that's a little bit better switch, so my suggestion, one of these paddle switches I think is a better idea.
So check this out, guys. We've been in contact with Vevor, and we actually sent them all of our suggestions we had. They have been super cool. Yeah. The lady at Vevor, she forwarded our suggestions to the different teams that needed them, and one big thing is they are actually making a video that should be out by the end of April 2023, that's this month, on how to put the stand together. So that right there, that's really big. And then they are gonna improve on some other things, they're gonna get more feedback, and they took our suggestions to heart, it seems.
Yeah, they really took our suggestions. We actually made a little video, sent them to them, showed them what we kind of had some suggestions on. They were super responsive, and for a big company, that was really impressive.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. So I know what you guys are wondering right now, is this saw worth the money? What do you think?
Absolutely. You know, this is not a saw stop. This is an entry-level saw, but it does a lot of cool stuff that saws it's in its same price range don't do. So you know, I'm impressed with this little thing. It's a workhorse, super powerful. It does a lot of really cool stuff, a lot of stuff I really like.
I agree. You know, for $359, the saw with the stand, especially if you have limited space. This thing folds up super easy, it unfolds super easy, it's really powerful. For the money, I think it's a good little saw.
Yeah, and I've had inexpensive table saws in the past that didn't even come close to what this thing does. So it's 2 thumbs up. It could be better, but again, the responsiveness from Vevor, thank you guys so much for listening to us and taking our suggestions to heart. But yeah, 2 thumbs up from me.
Yeah, me too. I think it's pretty good. All right, guys, so there it is. Thank you so much. And also, guys, we have exclusive content strictly for our email list. It's absolutely free. I'll put a link in the description below, and you can check it out.
So stay tuned. We got lots more great stuff coming. We appreciate you guys watching. If you have any questions, Eric@makeawoodsign.com.
Or Ryan@makeawoodsign.com.
We love you guys. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.